Hello out there. How's it going? Thanks very much for being here tonight. My name is Vincent Kelly, and I want to say hello to everybody who's joining us on the various different channels. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Zoom. And everybody on Zoom, I've got you all here beside me, and I have somebody taking care of the other channels. So if you have any comments or questions that you want to put in tonight on any of those other channels, just pop them into the comments box and I will get them directly here on Zoom. And for anybody on Zoom, if you have any questions tonight, you can pop them in here directly to me, because I check the chat quite regularly. So yeah, before I start, I'd like to just tell you that I'm from Ireland, for anybody who's not from Ireland, because sometimes you get people from other countries. I'm from Kildare, and in Ireland, moved to Dublin in the 90s, went to college, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a few minutes, okay? Before I do, I'd like to find out where you're from, and if you wouldn't mind popping it into the chat, that would be wonderful, because I like to find out where everybody is. And plus, it gives you a little bit of practice, because throughout the webinar, maybe 2 or 3 times, I might just ask you for some examples, and it'll give you a chance to send your example in on the chat. So you don't have to participate in it, but I might just ask you to, as a group, I won't single you out, don't worry. I would just ask as a group, anybody have any examples, and you can pop them into the chat. But before we start, can you let me know where you're from? Are you, where in Ireland? Are you in the UK? Are you in, Siberia? Where are you? It'd be great to know. Hi, Chantal from Dublin. Great, thank you very much for joining us. Grace from Cork. Hi, Grace. Thank you very much for being here. Atiya from Tehran, Iran. Fantastic. Wow, that's not exactly down the road. It's quite a distance away, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. So that's really good. We've got Dublin, Cork, and Iran. Fantastic. Anybody else want to pop in your town, your county, your country, so I can give you a shout out? Yeah, you can call out you can even put in your favorite football team if you want. I don't mind. I just like to see where everybody is, and it's great to do that, because it gives me a flavor of where everybody is around the world. Sometimes, like for example, in one of my webinars, I had a whole group of teachers from Pakistan, and people log in from all sorts of places, Canada, the States, different times. Okay, excellent. Well, good folks. Well, listen, if you want to pop in where you're from, do so. If you don't, that's okay too. So let's get rolling on this webinar. And my webinar tonight, as are all my webinars, is based on this book called Dianetics. And that word Dianetics comes from dia, which means through, and netics, which is Greek nous, which means basically the mind or thought. So through thought, Dianetics, through thought, or through the mind. That's the title of the book, okay? And it was written by this gentleman. His name is L. Ron Hubbard. And this man started with this particular book, and my webinar tonight is mainly based on this book, okay? He went on to do further research into different aspects of life and came up with a subject called Scientology. And that word means the study of knowledge, okay? Most people have heard about it through Tom Cruise and various different channels. But it is a separate subject. As I said, mainly tonight we're going to be going over this particular subject. But people sometimes ask me, hey Vincent, is it connected to Scientology? The answer is yes, it is. It's definitely connected. But we'll be treating them separately. This is a separate kind of a subject within that. So if you have any questions about the connection, please send the host a message. You'll see her there. Who is it tonight? Mandeep is the host, so you'll be able to send her a message if you have any questions on it, and she'll clear that up for you. Okay, so folks, the promise tonight is I'm going to answer the question, what is behind wrong decisions? You're going to walk away from this webinar knowing a couple of basics. You're going to be reminded of 2 things that you probably already know, or which you're somewhat familiar with, and there's one major thing that I need to tell you about, which you absolutely have to clear up as soon as possible, because it influences your decisions and will do so in the future. Now, before we begin, I want to get your full attention. Did I? So if you have the TV on and you're watching the football match with one eye, turn it off. I can't enforce this, but I just advise you. So if the kids are running around you in the sitting room, I give them, I don't know, give them some fruit to eat or something. I don't know. Just give them something to draw so that I can get your full attention only for the next 45 minutes or an hour, and then you do whatever you want after that. It's your choice, okay? I really do want you to stay around until the end, because at the end, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the book, and I have a special offer which I want to tell you about for anybody who stays till the end. All right? And it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it for you. Okay? Quick bit of background on myself. As I mentioned, I'm from the countryside, moved to Dublin in the 90s, went to college, studied personnel management as part of a business studies degree course, actually. Wasn't sure if it was what I wanted. I'll go over that in a few minutes. Went traveling, came across this in Germany. Very interested in self-improvement in terms of helping other people. I tried it. It worked like magic, and I've stuck with this ever since. Only because it works, and that's why I want to tell you about this stuff tonight, because I've got material that is 100% going to help you in your life, right? So that's basically why. And I myself have been delivering webinars, lectures, seminars for over 25 years all around the country. And I'm trained as a Dianetics counselor myself. So I've helped a lot of people to clear up things about themselves so that they are doing better in life. Okay. Personal story, how I normally, when I do a webinar like this, in terms of the title, for example, this one is about wrong decisions. I myself have made many wrong decisions, mainly in relation to people, okay? Trusting the wrong person. That's where my wrong decisions have come about, and they have hurt me pretty bad. I've got myself into difficult situations because I trusted the wrong person, and it cost me. It cost me. In addition to that, when I was in school and college, I was very uncertain about what I wanted to do, so I couldn't make decisions. It was very hard for me to make decisions, and I didn't quite know why. And I'm going to be addressing those 2 points tonight, but they affected me big time. So now, what I want to find out from you, if you don't mind, okay, and if you don't mind popping this into the chat, I want to find out from you, and this is so I can kind of gear what I'm going to cover in the webinar and how I'm going to cover it. How have wrong decisions affected you? In other words, why are you at this webinar? What do you want to find out? Is it that you're not sure what you should do in the future? Is it that you keep thinking about wrong decisions? Is it that wrong decisions have affected you in relationships or with business, or you just keep doing the same thing, keep making the same mistake over and over and over again? What is it? Okay, if you don't mind popping it into the chat, just, even one or two words to let me know how wrong decisions are affecting you in your life, so that I can at least give you personally something for you to walk away with tonight, just in case I don't catch everything. Okay? So I'll just give you a moment to think about that. What are you trying to solve that brought you to this webinar? What do you need help with? And if you don't mind popping in the chat, I would be most grateful. Otherwise, it's just me talking. And I of course, I love to talk, but, communication is a two-way thing. Okay? All right. Anybody want to volunteer? And just while I'm there, while I'm waiting for you to put in your comments, if you don't mind, at least one. I just want to say hello to everybody on Zoom, okay? Because I normally do. Hello, Vanessa, Dragon Lord Lee, you may not hear me, Grace, VJ, Lisa, Atia, Orla, and James. It is great to have you on board. Thank you so much for being here. Okay? First one, fear of making a final decision in case it's the wrong decision. Good. I'm going to just make a note of these. It helps me to break it down. Actually, let me just write it up here. So it's a fear of making the wrong decision. Okay, good. Anybody else want to pop in? What you need help with? What is it that you're trying to handle? A direct message came in for me. I don't normally read these out. If you send me a direct message, which I just got there from one of you, I don't normally read it out. Just get a flavor for it, and I'll pop it on. Now you've popped it on to everybody. That's perfect. Struggle to talk about feelings. Just let my wife getting angry and lose faith in relationship, and then we can fight, which caused other person. I got it. Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. We're gonna cover this. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so struggle to talk. So communication. Got it. Okay, good. Thank you, James. Anybody else want to pop anything in? So we put in feelings, communication. Where are wrong decisions affecting you in your life? Okay. And by the way, if I move on, I usually come back and check the chat to see if there's anything in there, and then we will address those. Okay. Good. Okay, folks, we're going to move on. So thank you very much for those. That gives me a nice little flavor. Actually, I better write these down before I actually go about the board. Fear, feelings, and communication. Okay. Okay, thanks. And I got one more. Wrong decision to ignore signals about relationship with my boss, so it ends badly, which caused me to lose job, and I couldn't go further. I was afraid it'll be okay. I get the picture. So then we have, yeah, it's kind of that fear thing about. Let me just grasp that. Fear of making the wrong decision again because you made the wrong decision in terms of relationship in the past. Yeah, get it. I got it. Okay. Okay, good. And VJ wants to be right. Yeah, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, everybody wants to be right. We all want to be right. I think that's kind of like a kind of a central thing. We all want to be right. Very good. Thank you, VJ. Excellent. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, let's roll into this. Now, what I'm going to go over with you tonight is, and by the way, as I mentioned to you before with myself, I had trouble making decisions, and yeah, I just made some wrong decisions, and they did play on my mind. And when you do make wrong decisions and you have regrets, it does tend to follow you a bit until you kind of know what to do next, and then you can kind of really deal with it. Okay. Not knowing what you want. Okay, I like that one. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, understood. We're going to cover all this stuff here. Good. Okay, folks, I am going to leave this aside so that I can remember exactly what to address. Yeah, and we got a message on Instagram. Wrong decision in making money. Yeah, I've got a good example on that one too. Okay, so then we have money. Thank you very much, whoever it was on Instagram. VJ, it's not being recorded. No, we don't. We just do these live. But you can, I believe, on Zoom it's not recorded, but on Facebook you might be able to get it. I think you do. If you check out our Facebook channel, it should be there. Okay, folks. So let's launch into a couple of these. Now, what I'm going to go over with you is a couple of basics that you may already be familiar with, but which you need to be reminded of. And people do need reminding of these couple of things, because they are important. I'm not going to get into them in too much detail because honestly, each one of these points, I could do a full webinar on each one, all right, which I'm going to go over with you. The main topic of this webinar is going to be in the second half, where we're going to go into the meat and bones of why it is that you make wrong decisions and exactly how to get yourself into a situation where you're making the correct decisions. You're thinking clearly. You're able to make the right decisions, not just in terms of a job, in terms of your career, in terms of who to choose as a friend, who to trust, who not to trust, but also what to do in your personal life, how to address things with kids, family, and so forth. Okay, so now we're going to go over a couple of basics, and the first one is this: education. Seems very simple. Vincent, come on, I know that already. Okay, it's just something I just want to touch on. All right. Education is absolutely vital. So one of the main reasons why people make the wrong decisions is they have missing data, or they are operating on false data. Okay. In other words, if you were educated by your best friend, and that best friend told you all men are bad, and you looked up to that best friend, that information might just stick, and your future life could be affected by information that you receive from another, whether it's right or wrong. But you took the information on because you had admiration for that person or respect for that person, even if the information was incorrect. Okay, missing data as well. Let's say you decide, and for Atia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I think most people are from, well, anyway, anybody who put on the message there are from Ireland, so I'm just going to name a couple of Irish cities. If you want to go to Cork, let's say from Dublin, and you don't know how to get there, and you don't know the fastest way, okay? To help you make that decision, you've got Google Maps. So you type in Cork, boom, and it gives you 3 or 4 different routes, and it tells you what's the fastest route. Okay, so you know how to use Google, you know how to do it, very simple, bang, and now you can make your decision because you have very good information. In other words, there's no missing data. Now, of course, there could be roadworks that Google doesn't pick up, but in general, you have the data, and now you can make the decision. If you didn't know how to use Google Maps, and you didn't have this mobile phone to tell you where to go, and you were looking at one of these big maps, an actual physical map, it might be pretty tricky. And you might go, oh, I don't really know what I should do, and you might end up making the wrong decision. So the more accurate and correct data that you have, the more likely it is that you're going to make the right decision. Another example would be the stock market. Let's say you have money to invest, okay? You've got 50,000 euros in your bank, and you have to decide, okay, where am I going to invest my money? Okay, your best friend who has been in the stock market for 6 months and tells you he's after doubling his income. He hasn't a clue what he did, but he's after doubling his income, and he tells you, oh, definitely, what you need to do is invest in the slippers company. They are going to absolutely boom, okay? So then, based on his data, which turns out to be false, you invest all your money in this thing, and then the slippers industry crashes the next day, and you've lost all your money. So, again, the situation there is you're missing data about the stock market, or you've got false data about the stock market, which makes you make wrong decisions. So if you have knowledge about the stock market and you know how it works and you understand it, it can help you to make the right decisions every single time. I know people who are in that industry and they just know what to do. They know how to avoid trouble, they know how to avoid losses, and it just works out well for them. In general, okay? So education is vital. And I want to just give you one piece of data from this book here, which is absolutely vital. So if you want to make a decision about a job, or about money, or about a career, you're going to have to get some knowledge about it. You're going to have to fill the gap and get the knowledge. But a lot of people don't know how to study. And so they rely on YouTube videos, or they rely on what a friend says, because they can't study. And one of the biggest problems with studying is that in many people's lives, we've been taught in school through repetition, or try to remember everything, how to learn things, okay? But I'm going to give you one key piece of data. I'm just going to read it to you. It's from the very first page of this book, Dianetics. And this is an important note. It is at the front of every one of this guy's books that he wrote, 365 books on the subject. At the beginning of every single one of his books is this important note. And it made a massive, massive difference for me in terms of making future decisions about things, okay? And here it is. In reading this book, be very certain you never go past a word you do not fully understand. The only reason a person gives up a study or becomes confused or unable to learn is because he or she has gone past a word that was not understood. Now that might seem oversimplified. And I thought it was oversimplified when I read it first. But I assure you, if you apply this, if you want to learn about the stock market, about relationships, about how to improve your marriage, okay, about how to determine what is the best career, and you start studying about these things, if you always make sure never to pass by words you don't understand, you are going to have a much easier time getting the true information so that you can make the correct decision. Okay, so the little tip here is clear your words. Okay, now as I mentioned, I could do a full webinar only on this point. Okay, but the basics are in the book on what you do and how to handle it. And in fact, in this book, there's deliberately a beautiful glossary at the end so that you can understand it. Education is number one. Okay, let's go on to number two. Number two is a subject I like to call suppression. Okay, to suppress something means to squash it down. Okay. Now, when I mean suppression, I mean this. I mean somebody suppressing you. Somebody suppressing your decisions. Somebody suppressing your personality. Somebody suppressing your dreams and your ideas. Why? For their own good, not for your good. So in life, you have dreams, you have things that you want to achieve. Every single person on this webinar, and I thank you for being here, you are one of the strong ones because you want to find out how to improve your life. And here you are listening to a complete stranger trying to tell you some basics, and you're giving me a little bit of trust, but you are a strong individual and you want to improve your life. So you are one of these people who wants to go upwards. You want to improve life. Otherwise, you would not have registered for this webinar. You would have stayed and watched Netflix tonight. Imagine that. Wonderful film on Netflix, Vincent's webinar. You chose the webinar. Why? Because you want to improve yourself. Okay. However, for people like you who want to do better in life and who want to improve, however that is done, you are going to run into certain types of people who will try to put you down, okay? Directly or indirectly. In the subject that we cover here, there's a name that we've assigned to this person, which is basically a suppressive person, okay? And I'm going to tell you how they affect your decisions and how they cause you not to want to make decisions. So it's a suppressive person. And there's also another word for it, antisocial personality. Okay? That does not mean a person who doesn't like to go out or doesn't like to associate with people. It just means someone who is actually anti-people. In other words, they don't want to see people doing well. They don't want to see people being very successful. So I'm going to read out to you a couple of the things to watch out for. All right? Here's what a suppressive person will do to you when you're trying to make a decision. And this type of person will also prevent you making decisions. Okay? So they try to make you smaller, refuse to let you reach, make you uncertain about your reaching. For example, you decide, you know what? You've got this friend for 10 years, a very close friend, and you say to your friend, you know what? I think I'd like to open up my own business selling shoes because I love shoes and I'm really good at it, and I think there's a market there for it. I think I can set up this business selling shoes. And your friend, who's always been around, tells you, sure, you'd be no good at that. Sure, you know nothing about business. You'd be better off staying home with me and we'll just walk the roads every day. That's what you'd be better at. Why don't you do that? What's the point in all those stupid dreams that you have? In other words, as a friend, cut you to ribbons directly or indirectly with kind words. But the result is that now you don't know what you should do. You're not sure if you should stay in your relationship, you should go. Should I go to college? Should I open up my own business? I don't really know what I want to do. Okay. And what they also do is they remind you of the decisions that you made in the past that were wrong. So you might have had a couple of failures here, and a suppressive person will often use that against you. In other words, remind you of all your failures and all your wrong decisions to get your attention on it so that you become uncertain again. So it's very important to watch out for this. Now, if you're thinking about somebody in your life that maybe is like that, it's important to understand that sometimes we can all behave like that. We can always sometimes be critical of other people. And this is something, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of this. This is a booklet called The Cause of Suppression, which I'm going to tell you about at the end. This booklet gives you the 12 characteristics by which you can identify somebody who is truly suppressive and not good for you. Okay? And it also shows you how to handle such a person so that they're not affecting you and so that you rise above it. But it doesn't just show you about who's the bad guy. It also shows you the 12 characteristics of the good guy. So when you're evaluating a friend or a family member or a colleague or a boss or some business partner, you do have to be able to look at both sides of the story. It's not enough just to list out all the negatives, okay? There's all the negatives. Oh, yeah, he's critical. Oh, yeah, he doesn't smile at me. Yeah. He wears black shoes. Oh, definitely. Black hair. Oh, he's definitely a suppressive person. You know, you can't just pick the negative points in somebody. Even if somebody is being very nasty to you daily, okay? You have to be able to look at the positive and the negative side before you approach that person. And so when you're approaching such a person, if you have somebody in your life, by the way, let me ask you here, does anybody have anybody like that in life? Or do you know anybody, or have you had anybody in the past who was like this, critical of you, critical of your dreams, constantly putting you down, constantly making you uncertain about yourself, constantly making you worry about, oh, well, if you do the same mistake again, well, this is going to happen. Anybody had that before? Give me a yes or a no or a smiley face or a thumbs up or anything. Okay, Atia. Hope I pronounced your name right. Thank you. Anybody else have that situation in the past? The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's often very subtle. And you think it's you, but it definitely is related to somebody on the external channel who could be cutting you to ribbons, okay? And then, in order to handle this, there's a point that somebody brought up earlier. Thank you, Grace. What's going to be involved is communication. Okay, communication is vital. And again, I could do a full webinar just on this. And we do courses about communication, about suppression, and about education. So there's all sorts of extra information that you can learn. This is not the highlight of my webinar tonight. I want to get onto that now in a minute. If you have somebody in your life who is constantly undermining your decisions, making fun of you, critical of you, talking about you behind your back, nasty, constantly telling you you're not good enough, you're hopeless, you can't never make the right decision, I'll make the decision for you, all right? You're going to have to sit down with that person over a cup of tea and communicate calmly and in a friendly fashion. Now, maybe it takes 3 or 4 cups of tea, 3 or 4 visits, maybe it takes more. But usually, communication will resolve it. You let the person know, listen, here's the situation. Would you mind? And normal people will change their behavior. But if you get somebody who's a true suppressive person, they ain't going to change. They just are not going to change. It's one of the characteristics of a suppressive person is that they won't change. You've asked them so many times to be nice, to be polite, to be respectful of you, and they're still not doing it at this point, and it is not a step I normally recommend. So with communication, you're going to handle the situation. Okay, you're going to handle it. This is the first thing I recommend to everybody as the number one thing to do is try and handle it, especially when it comes to family members, friends, neighbors, colleagues, people in work. However, if nothing works, you always have a right to disconnect. Okay? This is why people leave jobs where they feel suppressed. It's why when a person lives in a country, for example, in Ukraine, there's a lot of suppression and people can't handle it, so they disconnect. So you do have that right to disconnect from somebody that you consider to be a suppressive person to you. You might be wrong, you might be right. And so it's vital to know all the good points and all the bad points before you make such a big decision. I normally don't recommend this as the first action. I recommend do whatever it takes to try and handle it. It's easier in the long run. It's better in the long run, and you keep more friends. Whereas some people just say, look, you don't like him, just unfriend him from Facebook. Just disconnect. Just erase him from your life. It's not easy to do that every single time, especially when it comes to family. And it also can be used to try and avoid life. Okay? Good. All right. Question there came in from Instagram. What is false data? False data just basically means information that was given to you in your education that was simply incorrect, and you're operating off incorrect data. So, for example, your dad told you how to fry eggs, okay? And you've been frying eggs the way your dad said for years, and it's been wrong. It's all become crusty, and nobody likes your eggs. But you think they're great, but nobody likes your eggs that you cook because your dad told you how to make them, and he told you how to make them incorrectly. And then one day you're looking at a program with Gordon Ramsay, and he shows you how to fry an egg properly, and then you do it, and it produces fantastic eggs. Okay? Can suppression also be a thing, a situation, and not a person? Not really. It's usually a person or a group of people. There could be places that remind you of a person, or situations that remind you of a person, but it comes down to a person or a group of people. I hope that helps you, whoever that was on Instagram. Okay, so those are the 2 key points. Education, suppression, and then this third sub-factor, which is communication, which is absolutely vital. Now, okay, and by the way, if you have any other questions, as somebody did on Instagram, if you have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to pop it into the chat. Okay, now folks, next thing. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. All right, that's important stuff. It's very important. But it's not as important as what I'm going to tell you right now. This is the most important factor to address when it comes to making decisions. The most important factor. And that is this thing called thought. Okay? How you think. And let's just put in a little adjective there. We're going to add in clear thought, as in ability to think clearly. When you are thinking clearly, when you're with it, when you're feeling good, you know you're bright, you're well rested, you're feeling like quite strong. Your thinking is going to be clear, and usually you'll make the right decision. And if you don't have enough information to make the right decision, you'll get the right information, work out if it makes sense to you, and then you'll make the right decision. Where do your decisions and your thoughts come from? They come from the condition of your mind. And your mind is quite simply a collection of pictures from your past. And it does exist. It's not imaginary. It does exist. You record pictures of everything that happens to you as you're going along through life with this. Okay, I'm going to go old school. You've got this kind of constant projector thing, and you're recording. For example, if I asked you to close your eyes right now and remember when you logged into this webinar, seeing me for the first time. Just close your eyes and try and remember that. Okay, you can open your eyes. If you got something there, that's simply a picture. You saw it, it exists. There's other things to learn about this and how you can determine, there's more to it. There's an energy connected with these pictures as well, which is very interesting to find out about. But quite simply, you store information as you're going through your life in order to make correct decisions. And you store all that information in exact date order by means of pictures. Now, if your mind is in good condition, your thinking and your decisions are going to be in very good condition. You're going to make the right decisions. So in other words, if you think clearly, most, if not all the time, you're going to make good decisions. Okay. And by the way, I want to just touch on one little thing here. When people start talking about the mind, instantly a lot of people go into confusion because they've been told that everything to do with your mind is all in this piece of meat here in your brain, and it's all a chemical situation. It's all a chemical imbalance this and a chemical imbalance that. And I never agreed with that, and I still don't. I don't believe that all your thinking, the power of your thinking, the power of your ability to think clearly is contained in a lump of meat not much bigger than a sheep's brain. I just don't believe it. You've got a far more powerful thing that you can use every day to be able to make good decisions. So here is your next exercise. What I'm pointing out to you here is that you have a very strong ability to make the right decisions once you're thinking clearly. What I'd like you to do is remember a time you made a very good decision and pop it into the chat. Just remember a time when you made a very good decision and things worked out really well for you on that particular area. And if you don't mind popping in the chat, I'd be most grateful. I would like to get your feedback. So try and remember a time when you made a really good decision and pop it into the chat, because I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute, and then I'm going to tell you what causes you in the main to make wrong decisions and what affects your thinking in a negative way. Does anybody have an example of a time you made a really good decision? You know, did you invest in a good company, or did you pick the right partner, or did you raise your kids properly, or did you, decide on the right diet that worked for you? Okay, or did you pick the right car? You know, what did you do? Good, Kamen, and I never said hello to you, Kamen. Going to university of my choice. Wonderful. Okay, so what happened here, we'll just take your example here, Kamen. You thought about it, you got all the information, you got all the information about the universities, you kind of knew what you wanted to do, you evaluated everything, boom, 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 bang, I'm going to this university, and you were glad you did. You were thinking clearly, and you came out with a good decision. Lovely example. Okay, anybody else? Great. Starting my new business and leaving my ex. Wonderful. Okay, so let's take those two. New business. Maybe you've had experience with it in the past, but you established, okay, what's going to work? Ding, 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 ding. You got all the data. You learned all the data. Boom, boom, boom. You got good experience. When you say new business, it might suggest that you had an old business or you worked in a previous business or whatever, but you have experience. You got the data and you made a decision. Okay, leaving your ex. You obviously evaluated the situation. You went, okay, this person, are they bringing me down or pushing me forward? And you analytically made a decision that you felt was correct for you, and it worked out for you. So very good example. Anybody else have an example of a good decision that you made? That's really great, Grace and Cameron, to hear those things. Anybody else? And if you do, please pop it into the chat and I will come back and check, okay? So now, let me tell you something. Oh, you got one here. Set the details and be clear with myself by avoiding emotions. Got professional help from a coach, so I changed my career path and quit the job I don't like. Fantastic. Good. All right. So this is actually a very good example at Tia, is that you got advice from a coach. And usually if I'm asking people to, get help from somebody, I usually ask them, get help from somebody who is successful in that area. Okay, so for example, if you want to be a teacher, but you don't quite know how to approach it, well, get help from a teacher who is already very successful in what they do. And the same applies to a coach. Okay, and you quit the job you don't like, and so forth. Okay, that's fantastic. Very good. And the avoiding emotions, we're going to go into this in a minute. Now, the next thing to learn is that your thought affects your feelings, your emotions. Okay? So, that comes first. This is number one, is your thinking. Number two, what comes after that are your emotions. And what comes after that is action or effort. Okay? So you decide, you know what, I think I can open up my own business and I think I can be a success. That's your thought. Emotion is going to be interest. It's going to be enthusiasm. Action is going to be constructive. Let's do the reverse. Let's say your thought is, you know what, I'm not good enough to open up a business. I'm going to be a complete failure. Okay? What's the emotion? The emotion is going to be anxiety, or it's going to be sadness. Action, very little. So how you're thinking is going to determine these emotions and what actions you take. So if you're not in control of your emotions, or you're not dealing with your emotions very well, there's a step back of this, which is how you're thinking. And if your thinking is not clear, which is the way it should be, your thinking should be very clear. What it means is that there is something affecting you that you're not in control of. There is something affecting your thinking that you're not in control of. And the beauty of this subject that I showed you at the beginning is that that has been fully discovered, plus how to clear it up. I'm going to tell you exactly what that is right now. For anybody who gets the book at the end, I've just given it away, what I'm going to be telling you about. Okay, page 50 goes over the full definition of what I'm about to tell you. But I'll just highlight the main points. Your mind records everything that happens to you. Your normal mind. Let's call it the analytical mind. Okay? Because it analyzes things. It works things out. Okay? So it records everything that happened to you, except for two things. Except for two things. Number one, physical pain. If you get knocked down by a car, the lights go out. But the information about that accident still gets recorded in a separate part of your mind, which in Dianetics we call the reactive mind. If you're getting an operation and the doctor is kind of cutting your leg and putting your leg back together again, you're unconscious, but there's still a great degree of pain, and everything is getting recorded. But you can't remember it afterwards because the lights are out. But everything is getting recorded by the senses. And it's stored here in a separate hidden compartment called the reactive mind. If you fell off your bike coming down a hill and you burst your elbow off the ground, okay, and it was extreme pain, for that couple of minutes, the lights went out, the information got recorded in a separate hidden compartment. So that's physical pain. The second thing that isn't stored here is this next thing. Painful emotion. And when I'm talking about painful emotion, I'm specifically talking about loss. If you lose a business, you've invested everything into this business, you love your business, and the whole thing goes bankrupt. Similar to physical pain, it's so much of an impact that that loss can also get stored here in this separate compartment. If you lose a parent that you love dearly, again, the impact can be very heavy. The lights go out, maybe not to a full degree. You don't go completely unconscious, but the lights kind of go down, they dim. And when that happens, the information gets stored in here. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you are carrying around a package of bad experiences which you think you've moved on from, but which you haven't really. And these package of bad experiences from your past relationship or your past businesses or your past physical experiences are still following you. Vincent, what has that got to do with anything? Here's what it has to do with anything. It's called reactive for a reason. It's called reactive because it doesn't ask for your permission and it's not under your control. In other words, all it takes is something in your environment, similar to what happened to you before, to trigger it off without your consent. So let me give you a couple of examples, okay? Let's say you were bitten by a black dog when you were 5 years of age. A very painful experience, traumatic. That's stored here, okay? 10 years later, you've forgotten about that. You're now 15, you've forgotten about the dog bite, you don't think about it every day. In fact, you hardly even remember it. But one day, you're a bit tired, and you're walking down the street, and what do you see? You see a similar black dog to the one that bit you. Okay? Now, you just see it out of the corner of your eye. You don't go, oh, look, there's a black dog. That reminds me of the black dog that bit me when I was 5. Ah, right. It doesn't really mostly work like that. You see this dog out of the corner of your eye, and what happens is your reactive mind triggers automatically without your consent. And what it does is it sends an instruction to you to get away. Now, it could be a totally different breed of black dog. It could be a non-dangerous one, but the reactive mind immediately controls your thinking and your body through your mind. In other words, you were feeling fine, 15 years of age, going down to meet your girlfriend for a date. Okay, bad walking. But all of a sudden, you get this stress feeling. Something comes over you, and you don't quite know. You're starting to get stressed, but you don't know why. So you can start to feel the emotion, but what you don't know is that this part of your mind started telling you to get away and started messing up your thinking. And when your thinking starts getting messed up, your emotions get messed up, and your decisions get messed up. If you start going down emotionally, your decisions can become more and more irrational and illogical. Let's take another example. Let's say you lost your grandmother when you were, 20 years of age, okay? You lost your grandmother, and it was a big loss here, and you loved her dearly, okay? You loved your grandmother dearly, and massive loss. Took you quite a long time to get over it. Okay, so that's fine. That was when you were 20. Now you're 30. You're walking down the street one day, and you see this woman, okay? And you don't even see her directly, just out of the corner of your eye, and she looks the splitting image of your grandmother, and also her voice tone and her clothes, maybe she's wearing a hat, and her clothes all match up. So there's enough similarity to trigger this off. And your reactive mind says, okay, you know what? Danger here. This is the same situation. And it starts affecting your thinking and can cause you to make the wrong decision again. I'll give you one more example. Let's say when you were a kid, you were bullied by a big guy, 6 foot tall, and he always wore black clothes, okay? And he used to beat you. And now you've got a business opportunity, and that business opportunity is with this guy, and he's got a really good business opportunity, really nice guy. Unfortunately, he's 6 foot tall and he wears black clothes. So instantly there's something you don't like about him, and you don't trust him. All that's happening is this guy is triggering off your past. Okay, so why do I say all of this anyway? What's the point in all of this? the point is that your ability to make good decisions is based on how clearly you are thinking on a day-to-day basis. The clearer you think, the better will be your decisions. The reason you don't think clearly, either on a constant basis or sometimes, the reason you just cannot think clearly and you can't make a decision is because of your reactive mind, believe it or not. You might think, Vincent, no, definitely not. That's nothing to do with me. Nothing. Of course, because this stuff is buried. In most cases, you don't even know what's here. But it's sitting there under the surface. So, let me ask you one question here. Has anybody got an example of something in life that can change your mood like that? Can anybody put an example into the chat of something in your life that can change your mood like that? So in other words, you feel happy, something happens, and all of a sudden you're depressed. You don't want to be depressed, but you just can't shake it. Or you feel happy, you're interested, somebody says something to you, and you get really angry, and you're angry for the rest of the day. Okay? So I'd like you to think of an example of one thing in your life that triggers you off and pop it into the chat, if you don't mind. Give you a second to do that. Have a think about one thing in your life that triggers you off. I'd just be interested to find out what you have to say about that. Oh, Cameron, I love that one, being told what to do. Yeah, very good. That's a really good example. Now, of course, it depends on how a person tells you what to do, but if a person, like if you have a boss or a coach, and the coach says, kick the ball into the net, please. But every time you're told to do something, you start to get stressed out, it means that something got triggered. The coach just pressed the button, which is affecting your thinking first, which then affected your emotions. Okay, anybody else have an example? Thank you, Cameron, for that. If you do, pop it into the chat and I'll come back to it. All right. Now, the next thing I want to go over with you is the solution, okay? So I did tell you that number one is education. And there's a part in the book which shows you about the importance of clearing up words that you don't understand. So very, very important to get educated in that thing that you want to make a decision about, okay? The next absolutely vital thing is to learn about suppression. People who are not good for you. And it's best to learn this early on. Don't wait for 10 years to find out that a person is not good for you. You might have a friend, and your best friend in the world, they always take care of you when you're sick. They always bring you out to the pub and make sure you have a good time, okay? But you might find out after 10 years that that person was not good for you, okay? So it's very important to find out early because they will affect your decisions. They'll make you uncertain, make you doubt yourself, okay? Okay, an Instagram message. Mother, illogical communication, doesn't matter the topic. And it's a very good example. Thank you for whoever that was on Instagram. Parents can trigger you off very easily by things that they say and do in many cases. The reason is fully explained in the book, but it does have to do with the fact that you share many of these bad experiences with your parents and some key ones that you'll be very, very interested to find out about. And it goes way back. Okay. Bottom line, you have a reactive mind that affects your thinking and then affects your emotions and your decisions and what you're going to do next. Okay. Now, if you don't handle this reactive mind, if you don't clear it up and you leave it sitting there, you might be grand, you might be feeling good, and it's not affecting you for 20 years. Okay, it just sits there. I mean, this rarely happens. But normally what happens is that every time it gets triggered, it grows. A new incident of stress is added, and your reactive mind grows to a point where you just decide, you know what, Asher, I can't make a decision anyway. I'm no good at making decisions, and I just stay where I am. I stay where I am, and I'm not going to move. And life doesn't work like that. You're either going up or you're going down. There's none of this level thing. You know, life isn't about staying the same. You either go up or you go down. It's like if you buy a new car and you just leave it at the front of your house. It's not just going to stay in that same condition. It's going to deteriorate unless you improve it. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, so now, this is the most vital factor to handle because it can affect your ability to educate yourself. And it can affect your ability to deal with nasty people because those nasty people can press your buttons very easily if it's in your reactive mind. Okay, so how do we approach this? I'm going to touch on this very briefly, and then I want to just show you what I have for you. And by the way, when I finish this and I wrap this up, I'll be doing questions and answers at the end, so you can hang around if you like. Okay, in this subject, and the beauty, and this is something that, and the reason why I've been doing this for over 25 years, and I've spoken to very, very many people about this subject and educated them on this, is because what I'm about to show you works. Some people take walks, read books, and do different things, and they are very helpful. But in the main, this thing is what you need to do, okay? We do a thing in Dianetics, and it's called auditing. The word auditing means to listen and to guide. So you've got a person who delivers a session called an auditor. And Dianetics is something that is done with two people. It's not done on your own, okay? The person who's receiving the session has got their eyes closed, they're wide awake, and we have a name for this person, pre-clear. Pre means before, and clear is basically the end result. And the end result being you able to think clearly, okay? That's basically it. You back to yourself again. And in a Dianetic session, using the exact 10-step procedure explained in this book, the auditor is helping the pre-clear to clear up all of these past bad experiences in a very exact step-by-step way. It's not just blah, blah, let's talk about the weather, let's talk about anything, drivel on for 2 hours. It's a very exact series of steps to help the person to completely clear up the baggage. First of all, to find it, and second of all, to completely clear these up one by one. And it works. How do you know it works? You don't know. Vincent's telling you. But I'm going to show you how you can learn how to try it. When you try it, you will discover, you know what? There is something in this. There is something in this. It has helped me. The only way you're going to know for sure is to try it. Okay? I have audited many people, and the changes in those people are like night and day. You're bringing a person back to themselves. I had a person who was very, very critical. She went in for some auditing and came out. She's happy again and back to herself again. Somebody else who was just very unmotivated in life had some Dianetics and then got interested in life again. These are just one or two little tiny examples. That's what you need to do. So summary. You need to get educated. You need to know how to handle suppression, and those are important, okay? But if you don't clear this, this is the primary thing that affects your thinking and your ability to make decisions. If that's cleared up, you're going to be much better able to think clearly. So, I want to now show you what I have prepared for you, and I really hope that you all get this, okay? It's the book. I want you to get this book. Let me give you some basics of what this is all about, okay? You learn on this book the real source of unwanted behavior, thought, and emotions which affects your decisions. It goes into that a lot more. Full discovery of the parts of the mind and how they work, so we explain all the basics of how the mind works, are in that book, and it is very straightforward. Exact step-by-step therapy to fully use your mind to unlock your full potential. And it's been translated into 50 languages. And this book, if you get it tonight, it's sent to you with free shipping. And like this book, it's got 500 pages in it. It's a beautiful book. There's a wonderful glossary at the end. The wording, the spacing on the words is very artistically done, so that you can read it very, very easily. So definitely you should get a copy of this book. Now, tonight I have a special addition to this, okay? If you get the Dianetics book, you will also get a copy of this Cause of Suppression booklet if you get this book before the webinar ends tonight, which is going to be about 10 minutes when I start questions and answers. This booklet gives you all the basics I went over about how to identify people who are truly good for you versus people who are truly not good for you. And it is really important to know this early on, because when you make a decision, it's 9 times out of 10 going to involve people. So you need to know who you're getting involved with. Okay? Now, to get these together is 25 euros. But if you get it tonight, it's 20 euros. So if you get this little book package before we wrap up our webinar tonight, which will be about 9 or 10 minutes after we finish questions and answers, you will get that for 20 euros. And again, free shipping. They are sent out to you the next day, so you should get them like pretty straightforward. It doesn't matter where you are, even if you're in Iran, we'll get them to you as quickly as possible. If all these books did for you was helped you to be able to make correct decisions in the future, going forward, for yourself, for your family, for your business, it would be worth it, right? If all it did for you was help you to clear up some of the negative emotion from bad decisions you've made in the past so that you can move on with your life, even just for that, it'd be worth it. So please get yourself a copy of the book. I'm a technical person. I'm trained in Dianetics. I've been promoting this for many years, and I'm not just trying to kind of say, oh, well, you know what, just get this book because for the sake of buying it. I want you to get it, but not just that, to read it. And also for that purpose, when you do get the book, we will provide you with our email address. So if you have any questions on it, or if you need help on it, you can always email us and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Or if you're looking for someone to connect up with so that you can audit each other, we can help to arrange that as well. Okay, so it's not just, there you go, get the book, all the best, take care of yourself, bye for now, thanks very much, cha-ching. You know, it's not about that. It's about giving you something that you can read in your own spare time. You can make your own sense out of it, decide for yourself if this is for you or if it's not, but at least give it a chance. And with the addition of this booklet here, you're going to need this data. You know, it really is vital. It made a massive, massive difference for me in my life, and 100% I'm sure it will make a massive, massive difference for you. So the link, Mandeep has put up the link there. So I'm going to keep the webinar open for probably about another 10 minutes for any questions. And the link is going to be there. So if you want to get the special offer, get it tonight, and we will send out that to you straight away. And I hope that you will follow it up. So at this point, I want to, if you can hang on for a few minutes, because sometimes people don't have questions, but they're interested in other people's questions. So if you can hang on for a few more minutes, I want to open the floor for any questions that anybody has on this subject. If you want to ask me about the education point, the suppression point, the reactive mind point, the auditing point, any of those points you can ask me about. Or even in general, if you have a general question, please take this opportunity to pop it into the chat, and I will be very happy to answer your question as best I can. Okay, so I'll just give you a moment there, and thank you all very much for holding on. Kamen, Grace, Vijay, Lisa, Atia, again, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, James and Jindali, it's great to have you still here. So if you have any questions at this point, please feel free to pop it into the chat. Or even if you have anything that you learned tonight, or that you feel, and actually I'd be very interested in this, if there's something that you got out of this webinar that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe you got reminded of something, I would love to hear that on the chat, something that you'd like to say. That would be great. But anyway, I'll give you a moment to have a think, to see if there's any questions that you have that you'd like to pop into the chat. Even if it's about your own situation, I don't mind. Anything. Did you enjoy the webinar? Let me ask you that. Did anybody enjoy the webinar? Did you get anything out of it? Did it make sense to you? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. Not to put you in a spot. You don't have to. I never tell people, oh, look, you have to put a thing in the chat. You don't have to. Some people like to, some people don't. I'm okay with both. But I'd like to know if anybody got anything out of it tonight, or if there was any specific aspect of it that was interesting to you, or if you have any question about it, that would be great. Oh, good. Oh, good. Thank you very much, Atea. Again, every time I say it, I think maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I'm glad it was correct. That's good. Great. I'm glad it was helpful. Good. Anybody else? Any realizations? Anything that you got? Anything that clicked? Pop it in right now. Because then I just want to tell you one or two other things, and then we will wrap it up. And for anybody on the other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, you can also do that as well. You can pop it in there into the chat for me. Okay, so then just tell you a little short story about this subject. BJ, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know, when I started this subject first, right, this was in the early 90s. I started in Munich in Germany is where I came across this book, all right? And at the time I was a student and I had my own methods of studying, which is try to memorize everything, you know, memorize and pass the exam, memorize. So I started reading the book and I didn't read the first page about making sure you clear up your words. So I just kept reading and I just kind of, I didn't know, just like in college, I tried to start remembering it and repeating it to myself. But when I changed that and I decided, you know what, I'm actually going to look up the words. I'm going to look up the words as I'm reading. And there's a beautiful glossary at the back of the book. It's what? It's 500, I think it must be 120 or 120 pages long of a glossary, but a beautiful, beautiful glossary. When I looked up the words in the glossary, and I made sure not to pass any words I didn't get, everything clicked. I understood everything. And when you understand everything that's in this book about the mind and how it works and how to clear up the reactive mind, it really gives you stability. And when you've got stability in yourself and you've got more confidence in yourself, you're going to be able to make right decisions. And that really, really helped me. And so when I started reading it properly and using it with others, I honestly was amazed with the results. I like looking at people and their whole expression changes, you know. You can literally take a person who's miserable or who has become miserable and bring that person back to life using these basics. And by the way, this is not anything but a traditional method of helping another person. Okay? There is no chemicals involved. There's no hypnotism. It's none of that. It's based on natural communication. Just like when you talk to a friend or a family member about a problem, you feel better. But the difference here, it's done in a very exact series of steps that you repeat on an incident until it's cleared. And by the way, if that incident doesn't clear after doing the Dianetic steps on it, it always means there's an earlier similar incident. Okay, which means that if you're trying to deal with, let's say, the loss of your dog, okay, your dog died last year and you haven't been able to get over it, and you've done this and you're still not over it, you felt a bit better but not really better, it means there was an earlier dog that died, or there's an earlier one. And what you want to do in each session is you want to get down to the basic. So each Dianetic session is not just about handling one incident, even though a person could get a lot of benefit from one incident. It's about handling a chain of incidents. So we're not just handling single incidents, we are handling chains of incidents. Okay? Because once you get to that basic, everything that's connected to that would clear up by itself. Okay? Some of the benefits that you can get from Dianetics, and specifically around decision making, and this is, I'll tell you what it's done for many people, including myself, is that it basically helps you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, be yourself, and be strong in life. Happy and strong, not angry and strong, happy and strong, and able to make the correct decisions that you determine in spite of opposition. If you have a logical decision that you know is correct, you should be able to follow through with that decision and get a good result, even if you get opposition. If you don't know about a subject, you should be able to think clearly enough to get enough information, analyze it, and be able to make the decision on that basis. So at the end of the day, all we're doing in Dianetics is not changing you, we're just restoring you. And that's what you do when you're applying Dianetics. We're restoring you back to yourself again, giving you back the potential that you already have that's been kind of blocked and shoved under the surface. Because the more strength that you feel emotionally and as a person, the more able you are going to be to take on bigger decisions and more important decisions. Okay. Yes, of course, we can go to the shop and choose between two apples. That's not hard. Okay. But we don't often want to choose, maybe I should live in a different place. What location should I live in? Because often it can be too much. But the stronger you get, the more clear thinking you get, the more energy you have, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to make a decision and make the correct decision. And that is only done by if you clear up this stuff here that's holding you back without your consent. Right, so folks, so I didn't get anybody has any other questions there before we wrap up? I have given another 2 more minutes. And again, I want to just, while we're there, if you do have any questions that you want to slip in there between the next minute or two, and then we'll wrap up. As I said, this book is translated into 50 languages. There are some words at the beginning that you'll have to look up at the back, okay? But it's very, very straightforward and very easy to follow through, okay? So give yourself the opportunity, get yourself a copy of the book, and the booklet is vital as well. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us, and the emails can be sent through to me as well, all right? And so there we go. So no more questions, that's fine. And Carmen, thank you very much. Great. So folks, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you all so much for being here with me for the period of time that we've been here. I hope it's helped you. I hope you get the book. Do get the book. Take the opportunity. And I'll wrap up here, but that offer will be open there for the next, I would say, 2 minutes or so if you want to avail of it. Okay, so everybody who's left, Lisa, Atia, James, and Jindali, thank you so much. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of your evening. Enjoy yourself. Take care. Bye.